right, so 11:32. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Three Guys, One Music. I'm Jamie. I'm here with Mike and Grant, and we are Three Guys, One Music. How's it going, everybody?
My goodness, Jamie, how are you?
Pretty good. We had a nice spring day today. It was pretty warm for us. It was very nice. Blue skies. It was I had to run some errands. Had to get my car serviced today.
That's always fun.
And it was it was very nice weather, so it was good. And it feels so great yesterday, but today I feel much better. But it's been a pretty good day. How about yourself?
I have to say I did some quick yard work when I got home from work today before the podcast. So plenty of pollen out there for everybody. So if I'm coughing and sneezing this episode, I'll just go ahead and say you're welcome.
Okay. All right.
Got my handkerchief ready. I'm good to go.
Hanky. All right. How about you, Grant? You doing all right?
I'm trying as usual. Yeah. At least the weather cooperated today. Earlier they had said cloudy and possible rain, and that all changed, and the skies opened up, and it was beautiful blue sky and nice clouds. And I was like, okay, I can deal with today.
Very nice. All right. Well, I'm going to make a comment regarding last episode. We were talking about our first concert experiences, and for anybody who's watched us pretty consistently, you may or may not do. I do kind of a lot of the editing and posting, and there's a lot on my plate, and that's my choice, but sometimes when we're doing the episode, I'm thinking about things 5 minutes away and how we're going to continue in that particular episode, and I'm maybe not as listening as intently as I should be, and I realized that I was very guilty of that the last episode, and I just wanted to apologize to Grant. I wasn't really following you as well as I should have been, and didn't realize it until after we posted it and I watched it, and I thought, okay, I can do better.
That's all right. Apology accepted.
Yeah. For anybody that's curious about the part I'm talking about, it was Grant's first concert experience, the very first one. And I don't know, I just got off track somewhere and my mind was wandering, and I didn't really get back in time to correct that. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that. So
Jamie, Jamie, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What'd you say?
I don't remember.
My mind was somewhere else.
Who are y'all, and how did I get here?
No, it's I think I complain about it all the time off camera. I'm the worst, because my mind's always trying to be one step ahead so I don't fumble, and I fumble the ball so much. I beat myself up over it. So not to worry, it happens.
Well, we've all done it, and then I found myself like, what did he just say?
Well, I think it's only whenever we're aware of mistakes we've made, and maybe we can do better, and that we recognize where we're failing or not doing as well as we should do. So I'll take that responsibility. So yeah, I can do better, and I'll try to do that. But this week we're going to talk about Grant's came up with a suggestion, which I really love. Basically, the way people learn to play an instrument today in modern times versus the way we learned, which was quite a while ago. And this is pre-internet, which is a wonderful thing. And we'll get into that and just give our opinions on the pluses and minuses of what's good about it.
For some of us, it was pre-microwave oven. That's how long ago it was, kids.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was for me. Was it?
I don't know.
I don't remember. The first year.
Well, the microwave was invented, but everybody didn't have them at it was not everywhere yet. Microwaves weren't anyway. Well, the microwaves were, but the microwave oven was not everywhere yet.
I don't remember the year. It was really close to whenever I started playing, but it might not have been that year. I don't recall. But we're going to talk about what we've been listening to, and I will go first. I've been listening to Buffalo Springfield, Stephen Stills, Neil Young, Richie Furay, Dewey Martin, and Bruce Palmer, the 5 original members. One of the most important bands, I would say, to the West Coast California country rock thing, in addition to the Byrds, but Buffalo Springfield, more important for the country rock for sure. They were, I don't know if there would have been an Eagles without them.
I was just getting ready to say that.
They were incredibly important.
Mhm.
And I got into them maybe 25 years ago. I'm not sure, really, sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what possessed me to listen to them, I don't remember. Maybe the song Rock and Roll Woman, I heard it and I thought, ooh, that's good. I like that. And for what it's worth, I'd heard before, of course, and I'd already seen Crosby, Stills and Nash a couple times live. And I was a big fan of Crosby, Stills and Nash for the previous 10 years or more. So really, really, I love that type of music. Vocal harmonies really, really are attractive to me. And I'm a big Neil Young fan as well. But yeah, Buffalo Springfield, really big band for me. Their first 2 records in particular are just really, really good, especially again, the second record. And then I've been listening to Neil Young's After the Gold Rush, his 1970 solo album, which would be his 3rd solo record, I think. It was recorded in Topanga Canyon at his house that he was living at the time. So it's really dry.
Yeah.
It was mostly recorded there. I think it was also recorded in Sound City and Van Nuys, or at Sound City and Van Nuys, partly. But and I've been listening to what have I been listening to other than that? Oh, Alice Cooper's 1975 release, or Welcome to My Nightmare. So I've just been stuck in 50, 60 years ago. I haven't listened
to the 70s,
but I have been listening to some modern things, but we'll talk about that next episode. This is primarily what I've been listening to the last several days. So how about you guys?
After the Gold Rush is a favorite of mine. I love that album. Love almost every song on there.
Yeah.
Good choice. I did not realize Mars Volta had a new album out. I was like, why do I not know this?
I did not either. So thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. Just a few weeks ago. I will not try and pronounce the Spanish title. Look it up, kids. But it's a very interesting album, very reserved for Mars Volta.
Really?
Not bombastic. If this was the first album I heard from them and it was their first album, I think, oh, they have a lot of room to grow. This is kind of groovy. But it's very surprising. Still very listenable. I really enjoyed it.
They're growing backwards.
Yeah, maybe. But it's much it's before it's just a cacophony of instruments, but it's really reserved, really stylistically it's still them, but not so much. Turned up to 8 instead of 10.
Okay. Is Juan Alderete still in the band?
I don't know. That is a good question. I need to look. I mean, I've just discovered that I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know it was coming. So
who's the drummer on this album? Do you know?
I have to look all that up. I've just listened to the album itself. I haven't really researched anything about it. But that was my weekend listen. Since we've been together last, I've been on a new wave kick, late 70s, early 80s. Just listening to playlist. Listen to the complete playlist from Grosse Pointe Blank today. If you've ever seen that movie, that's a lot of fun.
Fantastic movie. Great songs there.
Yeah, great songs there. But also just an 80s playlist with the Jam, the Buzzcocks, Gang of Four. I listened to them for a while since you brought that to our attention. Just some good new wave bands in classic 80s stuff.
Yeah, I had heard of Gang of Four. I don't remember how many years ago, maybe 15 years ago. I heard a couple of tracks from Entertainment. And I don't know if was Mall before or after that record. Well, I don't
I
remember.
want to say before. I'm probably
Entertainment was
wrong.
1979 and Solid Gold was 81. So
Mhm.
I don't know if there was a release in 80 or if it was 78. I don't know, but I don't really. There's something intriguing about them, but there was several tracks off of Entertainment that really had my attention.
Yeah.
And Solid Gold is more musical in many ways. The production is better. But I guess I didn't really listen to the entire record. So yesterday I came across a song called what is it called? Sin in the Army or He Had Sin the Army? Sin in the Army? Whatever the track is
Something like
called,
that.
it was so really rhythmic and interesting. I thought, I don't remember this track at all. I thought I
Mhm.
have to send this to the guys. It was really interesting. There was a live version from wherever, and they
Yeah.
pulled it off live. It was like really unusual, but it just was great. Andy Gill was a interesting guitar player, very rhythmic, and had this unique sound, very cutting, and it was cool. So anyway, I'm glad you if that inspired you to listen to a little bit, and I'm glad to play a part in that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah. I've been, like I said, I had texted you guys, and that's what made me think of. I was again listening this week to albums that I played to when I was learning to play, and that's what made me think of this topic. I was like, it's so different. Obviously, we'll get into that, but I did listen to "Damn the Torpedoes" again because it's such a great album. Boston's first album. Let's see, Van Halen 2 on Deep Dive, and this you're listening and you keep hitting go back. I want to hear that part again, and that's what made me think. Wow, I'm like not trying to relearn these, but I'm re-listening to how I learned. But now
Right.
it's just a button, whereas before needle. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I did a deep dive on the new Mogwai, Bad Fire. It's such a great album, and it's so different from their last couple of albums, where it's more a throwback to how they started with more
Hmm.
just instrumental. Just a lot of people don't get it because it's supposed to be meditative. It's supposed to be almost one long drawn out thing sometimes, so you can get into it and get into the music, not here's this hook, here's this hook, here's this hook, here's, like Jamie, you were talking about that one band that was just a bunch of riffs, the one Michael
Yeah,
shared, and I was like, that's cool,
it's
but
where my head is.
yeah,
Sometimes it is unfair to, I mean, every band has their thing,
yeah, and then
and
you got to be in the mood.
uh,
Like
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
listen to Mars Volta every day, but sometimes
right,
or you can't listen to Tool every day,
right,
or Otis Redding. No, sorry. Um, but yeah, you got to be in that mood. But anyway, the latest Mogwai is more like when they were also learning to play, because their first couple of albums are really not that sophisticated. They're just
right,
making the music they can make at the time, which is all
right,
anyone can do.
right.
Especially if you only know 4 chords or 5 chords, that's all you can write with. Or if you only know certain rhythms, that's all you can play.
That's all you
Um,
need.
exactly. But I mean, even some of the greatest songs in the world have been 2 or 3 chords. So you can't. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that you can't write a great song with just a couple of chords, but so anyway, that just got me thinking, listening to all that stuff, and I was just thinking about, wow, because I've even looked up stuff on YouTube like, oh, how is he doing that? And somebody's out there is going to
right,
be playing it, And
right.
but anyway, I'll say that for discussion. But yeah, just the throwback, and then the Mogwai deep dive.
Yeah, I love that. I do that sometimes as well. I don't know if I think of it the same way, but I think part of the reason why the people that I'm around a lot in my workplace, they never say it just out of respect, but I'm sure a lot of times they're like, God, man, he really listens to a lot of old stuff. And I don't keep up with what's new, but truthfully, it's not that I think the new stuff is not good, because when I hear something new that I like, I'm totally receptive to it and I'll buy it and I'll really appreciate it. But I still get so much satisfaction out of the older stuff. Not that I think it's better, but there's a lot of learning for me. I really do enjoy studying songcraft, and I am in the current headspace of I love how I haven't mastered it yet. Not that I'll ever master it, but I am not as good as I want to be with just the simple song form. And if I ever get to a point where I feel like I'm okay at it, maybe I'll venture to another type of music, like Mogwai or something. I've checked out Mogwai. I don't think it's for me, but I totally recognize how good they are at what they
Yeah.
do. But I
Mhm.
really like simple songs. And the
Mhm.
older I get, the more simple I like it. 3 or 4 chords, the vocal melody, you can do so much with 3 or 4 chords and
Mhm.
just you have a great vocal melody and you have a basis. You can get creative with the bass line. You can, and certainly the rhythm, in the song, you can do so much with just a little bit.
Mhm.
That's fascinating to me. That intrigues me so much that I find it very inspiring.
Yeah, it's almost more difficult to write something so minimal than it is to write something. I could write a
Yeah.
15-minute prog opus
Yeah.
with 450 chords almost easier than sitting down and writing something meaning that has emotion and more meaning with 2 or 3 chords. It's
Well,
almost more difficult sometimes to be
I,
minimal.
I've read a lot of people say that, and I suppose that's true. But to me, I just love I'm not as good as I want to be with just a simple chord or song form. And I'm still struggling to do that or striving to do that. And whenever I feel like I'm better at it, then I'll probably open myself up. And that may never happen, but I'm okay with that. I just love simple songs. I mean, they don't have to be simple, but I get so much inspiration from the songs I listen to. And I thought that's just really simple. They may have great guitar tones, they may have a great performance or a vocal. There's not that much to it, but it just
Mhm.
all works.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Yeah.
So that's my point of view on that. But well, let's get into the topic. This is really there's a lot here. I have definite opinions about this, but
Really? You do?
I do have
I
opinions.
find that hard to believe.
Yeah, but I'll let one of you guys go for first if you want to, and you can say what your perspective on it is. There's a lot of good things and bad things about the way
Yes,
we
yes.
currently do it, but
Yeah.
I think that
I'll
we
start.
probably will all echo each other to some extent, but
Yeah.
um, do one of you guys want to start?
Yeah, I'll go. I have no
Okay.
problem going.
Okay.
Um, with drums, because that was my first instrument, my primary instrument. Um, it's a little different because it's not it can be a melodic instrument, but traditionally it's not a melodic instrument. It's keeping time. It can be really, really simple, let's say, and no insult by saying simple or complicated. It can be like AC/DC, that's probably, or the Beatles. It's probably some of the first things that drummers put on and try to learn, because you can hear everything they're playing. You wouldn't put on Buddy Rich and go, "What's he doing?" Because as a beginner, there'd be no way. But yeah, I can remember, like I said a second ago, you would you think you're playing and you hear a part and you have to get up and I learned with a phonograph turntable records, and you would have to get up and put the needle, find just the right part, trial and error, and then you'd have to have 15 seconds or so to run back to your drum kit and then listen. And sometimes you would just let the music play, so you didn't have to keep getting up, and just try this one part over and over and over, and then try to just play that part in time with the way the song was, even though you're not playing that part where it's supposed to be. That was what I did a lot, because if you're trying to learn a little lick or a little fill or something like that, you can't keep getting up and getting up. And I learned the hard way that if you put the turntable close to you, the needle skips, because you're playing drums, and the
Yeah.
percussiveness of the drums actually makes the needle skip. So you have to have the turntable back in the day. You had to be a certain distance at least from the drum, so the percussiveness, the literal percussiveness, would not cause the record to skip. So yeah, I did that a lot. I remember trying to play a riff, not a riff, but a drum fill, and just keep playing, try to stay in time, and just play a simple beat, and just keep putting that riff just in there somewhere, but to stay in time, because obviously that's you as a drummer, you have to stay in time, because if you get out of time, it's really noticeable. Where if a guitar player gets a little bit off or a bass player gets a little bit off, it's not as noticeable. Where if they were hit a wrong note, it's more noticeable, but if the drummer rushes or slows down way too much or something like that, it's more noticeable than if he flubs a feel. So sometimes you can get away with it and like, oh, he did it on purpose. But and now obviously we had videotapes where drummers would make videotapes, but back in the day they were $75. They were super expensive, and it was.
Were they that much?
Yes, and the music videos when they first came out,
if you wanted to buy them, of course you could.
Yeah, you could rent them. Yeah, but if you wanted to own them, and of course, who wouldn't? Because you're going to rent it for a couple of days and then be like, "I'm not done. I want to watch this 500 times." But
God, did I pay that much money back then? I definitely, I owned several music video concerts.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, no, no instructional videos. I'm talking about instructional, not necessarily concert. Now, VHS, they were pretty expensive.
There
back
was
in
a
the day.
time they were like $50 and $70 for
a
videotape, whatever you were.
Whether
it was a movie or a concert or instructional tape, they were all pretty expensive.
Yeah.
What a ripoff.
Yeah, but yeah, and I rented those. Back in the day, I couldn't afford to buy any of those. But and then you had other drummers. If you knew another drummer, if you took lessons, even a more seasoned drummer could show you what to play. And that's like segueing into when I started learning guitar. I had people show me stuff, and they didn't know they were playing it wrong. So if you didn't have someone to show you the correct way, oh wait a minute, it sounds close. I mean, A minor sounds close to A minor seventh a bit. E minor 9 sounds very close to E minor. G sus, you can hear that sus, but some people still hear it as a G if they're they don't hear the pitch well. But several songs I remember learning on guitar and going, wait a minute, this doesn't sound quite right. And they were like, I've been playing guitar for 5 years. I know what it sounds like. Okay, calm down. But there just wasn't that many avenues, and I couldn't afford to take lessons at the time. So I just banged away in my room, and with my turntable and my drum set. But that's just succinctly, how I started learning to play.
Well, I just want to comment on one of the things you said. To me, this is the really important part. Now, listening, ear training is so incredibly important to learning an instrument.
Yes. You're
training yourself to listen to minute details. And if you have good ears, you'll develop them.
Well,
I don't know how it is for everybody else. I mean, that's just the way it is, but we all have, I guess, different degrees of ability on how fine we hear.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, that's like a flam and for no one that knows, a flam is when you hit the drum or whatever you're hitting with two sticks at almost the same time. So it creates there's a little delay. It's not the same time. It's just a little delay. And I heard that naturally. I could hear that. Okay, that's two hits. It's not one. And a lot of people would just do one hit, like you go over somebody's house and they played the song and they just do the one hit. And I'm like, it's a two. I didn't know what it was called because I had no formal training, but I knew it was a plop, not a pop. And same thing with when I started learning guitar, it came easy to me to be able to hear the difference in minor, major, seventh, augmented, diminished. It was, I guess my mother was a piano teacher for part of the time. So I did grow up in a house where I heard a lot of music, even though I didn't know what it was about because I wasn't interested in the keyboards. But you're right. You have to be able to hear. Like I said, I got into an argument with somebody showing me a song on guitar. Like, that doesn't sound quite right. There's something missing. And he was like, no, that's right. And then come to find out, it was, you move your finger. It's take your finger off. But
that was easy to do back then because you had limited resources to, learn the song. And when you mentioned that, immediately went back to a song I was trying to learn on my own, and I'm supposed to hit F, and I kept hitting C. I'm like, where do I go from here? Because I guess it was an inverted chord they were playing, and the fifth stood out.
Yeah.
So I kept going to C. It's like, I know this is right, but I'm not going in the right direction. And it wasn't right because I was just hearing it a certain way. I hadn't quite.
And this before we
I
learned
had to
that,
learn or train my ear
and a lot of
to
guitarists,
spot what was going on first.
yeah, they would leave. They would basically create a chord. They would
Mhm.
like maybe play a C, but mute the D string, or they wouldn't, play that. What's that? A E? They wouldn't play that or something, and or they would have their pinky on the G or something. And you just have to, when you don't have anyone to show you, you really have to tune your ears in to what they're doing and why does it sound like this.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you just hit a button, somebody plays it, or they'll show you in slow motion, and you're like, oh, okay, that's it. And it's so much easier to mimic than it is to listen.
Yeah.
Because that's
yeah, it's hard. I mean, but it's a worth it hard.
It is. I remember the very first song I learned on guitar, just listening to it over and over and going, okay, this is it, that's it. And I was so proud of that like, wow, I figured out this song and nobody showed it to me. It was so cool. And it was
I hadn't been
YouTube.
playing guitar very long when I was discovering things, on my own, that I was just sitting around playing and I thought, oh, that's that. I mean, I wasn't trying to learn a song particularly, but I would play something. I thought, oh, that's that song. And I figured it out because I knew it sounded the same. I knew I was right. And I think I have really good ears, but I mean, I know I have good ears and I say that with humility, but I mean, I did work at it. I mean, I spent time developing it, but I do believe I have better than average ears, but who's to say? I mean, you can't get into somebody else's head to hear how they hear. We're all different that way. It's a remarkable thing, but I will say that in my opinion, learning that way gives you so much more satisfaction than just knowing that you can now that you can play it. Like I watched a couple of videos last night of Rolling Stones, Can't You Hear Me Knocking? And it would definitely save you time.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have it down within 10 minutes basically. And you
it might take you 3 or 4 hours to learn it by ear.
Yeah, it might,
but I mean, the thing with ear, sorry to interrupt you. If you start learning by ear, you start to recognize sooner what the chords are and the structures and everything. Whereas if you're just mimicking, all you're doing, you're kind of still, you have to mimic to learn something new again. It takes longer for your ear to start recognizing, oh, this is that, and this is this, and this is that, because immediately, like I said, once I could almost immediately hear the difference between minors and majors and augmenteds, etc. Whereas if you're just mimicking, you might not even know the name of the chord if you're just mimicking. I mean, someone might just show you and they might not say this is this and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it is scary to think about somebody couldn't hear the difference between major and minor, but I don't know what the average person, how they hear. I only know how I hear. I don't know. To me, it was never difficult to hear between those things. I mean, just something simple like the intro to Highway to Hell. I know plenty of people who never played that right, because it's got a D over F sharp chord in it. And it doesn't sound the same unless you play it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't just play D to G or whatever, You have to have that particular voicing in there because that's the way Angus played it.
Mm-hmm.
And you could also say the intro to Spirit of Radio by Rush. So many people do not play that correctly.
They don't play a little triplet.
That triplet is the key to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for years I didn't play it right. I wasn't really devoting myself time to listen to it, but once I heard it, I thought I wasn't playing that right. So there's these little tidbits that if you want to play it like the record, and I don't always feel like I'm compelled to learn it exactly the way it is on record. I want to get the essence of it.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that it's just doesn't feel the same unless you do it the way they did it, and that would be one of those cases. The intro to Spirit of Radio is not it's just not the same unless you play it that way.
Isn't it amazing when you play something for so long and then you suddenly discover, oh, that's not how it's played. This is how
Right.
it's played.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
you know,
I got a great example of that. The first rock shuffle, I guess, other than like blues and stuff like that, the first big rock shuffle was probably "Fool in the Rain" by Led Zeppelin. I thought he was playing two hands on the hi-hat, not the double strokes here and the triplet or whatever you want to call it with between the snare drum, the ghost note before the main note. And I played it on the hi-hat, still accenting the offbeat. So it just sounds it sounds exactly like it. And unless you're looking at what I'm doing, you could be fooled into thinking. Same thing with Rosanna. You know, I learned it with two hands on the hi-hat, thinking that's how they played it, because, you know, I didn't have a great hi-fi system. It was just, you know, a phonograph and two basic speakers, and we didn't have a big, you know, JBL setup or whatever. Right. But so, you know, and you hear it on the radio, and radios back in the day in cars weren't that great. So, you know, I'm just hearing it that way, and I learned how to play it that way. And then when I was gobsmacked when I saw a video, and I was like, wait a minute, what the heck is going on here? I've been playing this wrong, but it still sounded the same. You know, and it's different, obviously, again, with drums and notes on a guitar. If you leave out a big note on a chord, it's going to be obvious that that's not right. So there's some things you can get away with in different instruments. I'm sure with saxophones and trumpets, there's stuff you can get away with, just like there's stuff you can get away with the guitar. You know, you could use your thumb. Maybe the guy didn't write it. Maybe he wrote it like this, and you're using your thumb or whatever, or you're stretching
Richie Haven style.
Yeah.
Just your thumb up and down the neck.
But that's a perfect example of hearing it one way and playing it, even though it sounded correct, yet it wasn't correct. So then I had to
Did it feel like it was right whenever you're playing?
It still had that lope, and it still had the feel. It still had the shuffle feel. And but
that's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah, to me, sometimes I will still play it like that, because it's just fun to play like that for me, you know.
Right.
But
so one thing you said, I just want to comment on this briefly, and this is a little off subject, but I don't think about this very often, but it's just like when you're doing anything, when your ears adapt and adjust, just like our bodies do to situations, or our mind, you know. But I was just thinking about whenever you said that systems weren't really that good back then. We didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's what we had access to. And our ears adjusted to that. So we were fine. Yeah. People will listen to have all the conveniences and hi-fi today and think, God, how would you enjoy music? And we enjoyed it fine.
I've had people complain. They were learning guitar and like, oh, this guitar sucks. And it's like $1,000 guitar. I'm like, dude, the guitar I learned on was like crazy cheap. And the action, I didn't know anything about setting up a guitar at the time. And so, you know, and I remember a quote from, I don't know if it's Bono or The Edge that said this in an interview, where people would come up to them and say, it's easy for you guys to write songs because you got all this great gear. And he was like, we've written songs where there were two strings on a guitar because we couldn't afford to buy a new set of strings. I said, it's not what you have, it's what you do with it. And that always stuck me. I mean, I had a piece of crap drum kit, but that's all I had to learn on. So I learned to play, you know. Same thing with the first guitar I had. When I got a real guitar, with it actually set up right, and it was so much easier to play. I was like, oh wow, you know, it was mind-boggling that I should have got a better guitar sooner.
I can say this pretty sincerely. Even though I really like the instruments that I have, now my amplifiers are different. My amplifiers are on a different planet than one I ever had. But my guitars, although I love what instruments I have, they do sound superior to what I've had and owned. but it's not a mile away difference. I was pretty happy with what I had years and years ago.
Yeah.
They played fine. They sounded fine. I wasn't thinking, oh, only if I had this.
Yeah, I didn't use
I
that as an
remember
excuse. I
thinking
mean,
that.
I had like I said, it wasn't the world's worst drum kit, but it was nowhere near a professional drum kit. But
Oh, I get it.
I learned, it made me learn have to learn how to tune much,
Yeah.
because it's harder to tune something that's like, if you have a cheaper guitar, that's going to be a little bit harder to tune than something that's set up perfectly. Obviously, same thing on a drum. If you have an old kit and then the rims are kind of wonky a little bit, and you might not have the best heads on it, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but you do learn more. Like you said before, if you learn by ear, you're going to take more out of that than if you just mimicking someone. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know I had the world's worst kit, because that's all I had. And I was grateful to have that kit. It was the best thing in the world to me. You know what I mean?
Well, I have a couple of comments, but Mike, I just wanted to see, do you have any 2 cents on where we've been on this so far?
Yeah. Well, I've got all kinds of comments.
Okay.
Got 25 cents.
One of the pitfalls I would have mentioned about learning on your own, the way we did, is you may not play things. You may play the notes, but may not play them where everyone else might expect you to play them. Until this day, I still play a D chord upside down, because when I was learning, I got out the book of chords and I saw those 3 dots.
Well,
I'm
you're
like, okay,
left-handed.
this is where my fingers go on the fretboard.
Well, let's say
And,
James Taylor and Tom Petty played the D just the same as you.
Oh yeah, okay. I've had so many people in the past look at me and say, "What are you playing?" I'm like, "That's a D chord." It's like, "Why are you playing it like that?" Well, it's how I saw it in the book. But that was those were the days, man. You get a book from the library, or buy a chord chart from the store, and
Had
you
the little
just
tiny book of chords.
Yeah,
It was you could
It
keep
was-
in your guitar
yeah.
case. Yeah.
It was so small, but that's how partly how I learned. I remember, I don't know if I bought these books or went to the library. I think some of them I went to the library. I remember one summer I had the music book for Exit Stage Left. I did the same thing with the Beatles anthology, picked out songs, and I couldn't read music. So I'd go through with my pencil, I'd copy the pages, go through with my pencil and write the notes over the letters over the notes, and then go back and play it on guitar and try and figure it out that way. Some of it didn't sound right, because maybe I wasn't reading the music correctly, but that was a good exercise. I don't read music now, but I got okay at reading music just by picking the notes out in that way.
Right.
Again, the videotapes we used to get. I remember Louis Johnson Starlicks was the name of the series. Name of the series of videotapes, and I remember the Louis Johnson tape was on sale, and I wanted to buy it. And the guy's like, "Oh, you don't want that, man. You're only going to sound like Louis Johnson if you learn those licks." And I'm like, "That's exactly what I want.
Yeah, for real.
I would love to sound like Louis Johnson." And I remember trying out a guitar in the guitar store later after buying that, and some guy walked by and said, "Oh, somebody's been listening to Louis Johnson." Yeah, I've got the videotape. But it is so much easier. I watched Scott's bass lessons on YouTube today.
Yeah, I watch them regularly.
They always say, if you want the tablature, it's in the comments. You can download the PDF, which is great, but also training your ears so much is so important. So much part of it. I'd been playing a while, and out of high school, there was a local band that was fairly popular. They were getting back together, and they needed a bass player, and I auditioned and got the part. And they gave me a list of songs to listen to and learn, just a cassette tape to listen to. And I guess the music I'd listened to before, the bass was really pronounced, and it was there were 2 Billy Joel songs, and I can't remember what they were. Probably Tell Her About It and Uptown Girl, and Tell Her About It at least. I could not get the bass part figured out. I was listening, but maybe it was the style or the way it was recorded, or even it could have been the stereo I was listening to it on. I just could not figure it out. I could not get it down, and I had to get someone to help me with that. So it is important to listen to all kinds of music and train your ear to pick up what's going on. You know, find those root chords, and then that'll help you figure out where your part is supposed to go.
Yeah, you know, you're just talking about something we haven't included or discussed in this is that learning just a little bit of music theory is really helpful. And
Yeah.
I did everything backwards. I learned how to play by ear well before I ever knew really any theory. I learned how to read okay. You know, I mean, I'm not good at it now, but if I studied for a while, I could get through a piece, you know, fairly convincingly. But it's not important enough to me to devote a lot of time to it, although I see the value in it.
Yeah.
Some people are just great readers, and that's awesome. But Mike, you may recall this. This is something that we had somebody who was going to play, or maybe we were trying to get them to play keyboards with us. I can't remember what the scenario was, but I want to say that she's like, well, I don't have a piece of music. This person was classically trained and really couldn't improvise or play along. And that just really threw me off. I was like,
Yeah.
what? So there is something to that where you need that. And that is the opposite of where I've ever come from.
Yeah.
I need to be able to, your ears are your biggest asset when it comes to being a creative person. But when you're talking about playing, you know, Tell Me About It or Tell Her About It or Uptown Girl, whatever the song was. If you know a little bit of music theory, you can come up with a convincing part that's based on that song structure, and you can reason it out, most likely. But if you're just learning the notes, which is incredibly important, there's not a wrong way or a right way. It's just it is helpful when you know a little bit of music theory. And right now I'm trying to write one song that's I've sent you guys a couple of sound files. It's very dark, very doomy. And I'm trying to use some music theory to help me, but I'm also using my ear, you know, which is ultimately the most important part of it. If it doesn't sound right, it's not right. But music theory is important. So you can help yourself by learning you don't have to be extensively equipped. Just some basic theory is super helpful. I just can't say how important that is.
Yeah.
And I only learned that or accepted it later, but
Yeah.
I know enough now to be fairly efficient with it. But there's always stuff to learn. But I want to say that whenever you have somebody who is never will go to the side of the tracks where somebody who has never really had to rely on their ear, they can just watch a video and learn something within 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. I don't really know if that's the best approach. You know, I'm really would not trade my striving to try to figure things out by ear because I can't calculate how valuable that was.
Yeah. I wouldn't trade it either.
Yeah, I know my ears are pretty good, but part of that is I put the time in. But if I didn't have to put the time in, I don't know that I would have.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Yeah. Why would you? I mean, that's the catch-22. It's like, well, it's right here. I need to learn how to play this, and it's right there. I could sit here for 2 hours and go through the, you know, fast forward and rewind and figure this out. Now, it would probably behoove someone who can already play, who does learn in a modern way, to occasionally say, no, I'm not going to learn it from someone else performing it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen and see if I can pick it out, you know.
Path of least resistance.
Yeah.
There is something to that. It's like I'm like a couple minutes from a ferry. I could take the ferry and do it in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or I could drive all the way to the top around the lake in an hour and 15 minutes probably.
Yeah. If you've got time to kill, then
enjoy the scenery. I get it. You know, it's
when Tab came back, when Tab was so popular and it was all over the internet. I remember, and this is early, late 90s, early 2000s, and I was doing a lot of
80s. It was 80s as well.
Well, when I was doing open mics and cover songs and stuff, and I would download the tab just for the and print it out just for the chords, because I had already been playing for quite a while then, and I knew if I just had the chords, if I know what the chords are, then I don't need to learn all the little. I mean, if there's a little important riff or something I had to play, yeah, it's cool to have the tab, but I could already figure that out, just by ear. But I didn't have the time. Like, we were going to do an open mic night on like Friday night or something. Well, by Wednesday, I decided, oh, I'm going to go to open mic. What songs I'm going to do? Because I tried to never repeat myself, and so I was like, well, I got to think of 3 songs, and then I didn't have the time, which was my way of YouTubing. I didn't have the way of just watching someone do it. But tab was, if it's B minor, G, A minor, F major 7th. I knew the chords, and I can put it together and sing the melody, and then that's the quick way. Instead of like, I could go home and dig the CD out and put it on and listen and try to figure it out. But I get it. Sometimes you have to have that. It has to be now. I got to learn it now, And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're in a band and they say, we're going to add 10 new songs to the set in the next 2 weeks, I'd be the first person on YouTube going, okay, how do they play this?
Well, it's also to be said that as adults, we don't have as much free time.
Oh yeah.
When we were kids and we were not yet employed, we had a lot of extra time to devote.
In the summertime, you had literally all day and all night.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember a few summers just thinking, oh boy, I get to play guitar all day long.
Same.
You
had the luxury. We had the luxury,
but I had the option of doing it.
At least you could plug headphones on or turn way down. As drummers, we only had a window of time, before it became too loud or too annoying, either to parents or neighbors, or
you're going to get yelled at by somebody.
Yeah, drummers are always getting yelled at, and it's really affected all of us drummers. So give your drummer a pat on the back and a hug, because he's been yelled at his whole musical life.
Well, I just want to say real quickly, when I think about when I was going to play guitar all day, I was going to be at Smith Whitley playing guitar. And I had a mutual friend of ours say, you played in front of people your entire life. Because I would play in front of people at the store without ever thinking about it.
Yeah, but it's not a performance. You're not thinking about it being a performance. Yeah.
Yeah, because I would say, oh, I haven't played in front of this. Like, yeah, you played in front of a lot of people and not cared. But I was at the store from every single day.
Yeah.
Virtually every day, and playing guitar. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention. I never really practiced at home. It was always
Jamey's played in front of thousands of people.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this is kind of out of sequence, but I wanted to mention this while I was thinking of it. One trick I had when I was playing to the record, when I had to learn that lick, or not the record, but I'd use a cassette. And when that lick came along that I had to try and learn, hit the 0 button, 0 out the counter.
Yeah. And you rewind to 0.
Rewind it to 0. Because otherwise you go too far or not go far enough, hit that 0 button. That's
when I had cassettes, I would record the same song like 5 times.
Oh yeah.
And then just play it 5 times.
That's one way to do it. Yeah.
Because it was easier. Like I said, I was stuck, we're stuck behind the drums. Yeah. And so it's much better. That's why I would play through entire albums. Even if I didn't like certain songs, I would learn them, because I would treat it almost like a performance, because I'm not getting up every other song to get up and switch the thing and then have to run back to the drums and then whatever. So I would just learn entire albums, like Silk Degrees, Boz Scaggs, which is a great album. I'm not saying it's a not bad album, but that's one that at the time it might have not have been, every song might have not have been like my favorite songs, but I learned every song because Gino Vanelli,
because you're just too lazy to get.
That's right. We're drummers are energetic, lazy people. That's why we love drumming, because you get to sit down. But
I was going to say, I see benefit in all these different things, all these approaches.
Yeah.
You hear it on the radio. You pick up your guitar and you try and pick out the notes on your own. Just listening. Tablature is great because someone's going to hand you tab at some point and say, "Here's the song," and you're going to have to read that and pick along. I enjoy watching videos on YouTube, and they have the music at the bottom, because sometimes rhythmically
Yeah.
It's hard to pick out what you're playing, and you're like, oh,
Right.
that's what that looks like.
Right.
You know, when there's a triplet and you don't count it that way in your head, but you see it's a triplet on screen, or those dotted eighth notes, you think they come in a different place. So it's good practice to
What's a dotted eighth?
watch those YouTube videos and see the music scroll at the bottom. For me, anyway, I think it's good training for anyone.
It's
at least rhythmically, you know, you can see the notes and count along.
Well, there's no bad. I mean, none of this is bad. It's just, if you want to learn regardless of how you learn.
There's certainly
there
more
are certain advantages to one than the other, and then there's certain advantages to the other.
There's it's easier today because it's, you know, YouTube and there's all kinds of avenues for you to learn quickly. But
every musician puts their stuff on there.
The same way we learned is still applicable today, and you know, it's all valid.
Well, let me ask you too, your opinion on this. I was going to say that, Mike, you reminded me of it. I think that if I could be wrong about this, but I'm guessing that it would be much more difficult to teach somebody rhythmic parts within a song. And I could be wrong about this, versus notes. Because guitar, you have the timbre of the note, and this is due to training yourself. Okay, are they playing the C on
this string or that string? Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of logic based on how difficult it is. Most people are not going to jump all over the place to play a part. It's going to make sense to some extent. So, but also, if you listen to where something is played, you know, you know, they do have a certain sound, whether you play it down low or you play it up high.
Yeah.
And the guitar has the same note in several places, or, you know, So you do have to be thoughtful about that. But it's really easy to teach somebody something wrong, not only where they play it, but just the notes might not be quite right. But on rhythm, like I wish that somebody that I had enough sense to really digest rhythms, and somebody would have put together in my head, it's like, oh, this is really important, like early on. Understand this to where you can feel it. You can hear it when you listen to it in a record. You can hear it. You can, you know, you recognize it.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, which I really regret. It was something I just had to internalize, and I still am that way to some extent. But that is something super important. If you can see that on a piece of paper, whether you have a certain bar, it carries over, a figure. Be able to look at it, and not that you have to be fluent at reading music, but just to understand the way that would help you tremendously. That learn more quickly.
It's like in drums, when both self-taught at first, I had no concept of time signature.
Yeah.
I had no 4/4, 3/4, 6/8, 5/4, 9. I never had. We played it the way it sounded, and it's almost easier to learn odd time signatures without thinking about it and just learning to feel it than it is to try to count it, because everybody, a lot of drummers I would befriend or oh, you play drums? Yeah, let's come over, let's play. And I would see them counting, and I was like, well, why are they counting?
It's because you're playing in 9. Nobody plays in 9.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even in 4/4, I was like, why are they counting 1, 2, 3, 4 to themselves? And I guess that's just the way they were taught. They were trying to stay in time. But even if you speed up your drumming, you're going to speed up your mouth. You can't separate your body to count one way in your head and then so it was just funny to me. And I was like, I never even thought about counting.
It's good to know how to count, but man,
if you're an accountant, especially
don't count while you're playing.
Yeah. And I would see that and I was like, what are they doing? And I was just,
I've seen videos of pro players doing some counting.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you specific. I think Bill Bruford still does it.
Yeah, now I could
Really?
see if you got odd time, if you got like a
Yeah.
if you got
I
four
mean,
bars of
not for
nine,
every song,
yeah,
but
of course.
on
But if you got
certain
a
parts.
complicated like 2 bars of 9 and a
Yeah.
bar of 7
Yeah.
and a bar of 5, and then you go back to 4/4 for 4 bars.
That
Yeah,
sounds terrible.
that's exactly. But in some, well, Rush had odd time signatures sprinkled in here and there, and I never thought about it sounds odd. It just was, and I learned to play it.
Yeah.
And I remember
Well,
Neil.
you play by the feel. You don't.
Yeah,
You don't
and
go. What is this?
and later on,
what's the beat? For
yeah, later on, Neil talking about he didn't want it to be obvious that it
Yeah.
was an odd time signature. He still wanted to, and Neil was saying he wanted to play it with feel, so it didn't have to be counted.
Mhm.
You
He
know,
had to internalize it, and that's how I
Yeah.
prefer to have it as well.
exactly. Yeah,
I don't want it to be complicated, but yeah, if you go and watch some videos of Bill Bruford, I can't remember if it was on the Union tour or if it was. I don't remember where I saw it, but you definitely see that
Yeah.
he's counting.
Right.
And he's one of the great
Oh,
drummers.
good Lord,
Great.
yes.
I don't know how common that is, but
Yeah.
anybody who probably needed to count would probably be Danny Carey because he has so many different. But I don't know that he does. I've never seen
Yeah.
him do it. I have
Yeah.
no idea. But those kind of drummers have to be able to internalize that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't play it with feel if you don't. If you don't, you're just gonna sound like a metronome. You just sound like a drum machine,
Yeah.
And not have it loose. That's like rhythm guitar players. Some guitar players, beginners, they will play rhythm, and it's very, even though it's in time and it's the rhythm, it just doesn't have that feel, that loose feel. Like I can't think of an example, but you know what? We've all heard guitar players that are playing the rhythm part, and it's just it's correct, but it just doesn't feel good. Same thing as a drummer who is just playing so much like a drum machine. It doesn't have any looseness to it, any feel to it.
Well, the players locking in with each other.
Yes.
Listen, locking in, and a rhythm guitar player and a drummer, pretty important.
Yeah. But playing by ear is great. But like you say, a little bit of music theory goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's you learn how to count the music, where the notes go, it really helps. Go ahead.
Before I knew anything about theory, people would say, "Oh, it's a 1-5-4," and I was like, "What are they talking about?" And and I was like, "Oh,
you mean a 1-4-5?"
Yeah, whatever. I'm still because I don't.
Grand.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just play it for me, and I'll play to it. I don't care. That doesn't make sense to me.
There are no rules here.
That's right.
And play it at 9.
Yeah, exactly. I can do that with 2 hands as a shuffle on the hi-hat.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out that kind of thing too. But I think of it was years ago. A friend of mine was at a bar, and he's doing one of those bar quizzes, and he texted me a picture. He's like, "Quick, what is this?" And I was like, "That's Beethoven's Ninth." He's like, "Really?" And he just sent me some staff with some notes on it. I'm like, "Yeah," or no, it's Beethoven's Fifth. That's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And he won that night. And he said he owed me a beer because I helped him win. Just from that, it's just real quick. I glanced at it, and I didn't necessarily know the notes, but I knew the rhythm that it spelled out. And I'm like,
right.
oh, okay. So, being able to glance at something and get an idea of what the notes are and what the rhythm is, it's helpful. It's a good tool to have.
Yeah, it helps you navigate through a piece of music. Like, I after us talking about all this, there are advantages to the way people do it now, for sure.
Yeah.
For expediency. But if you're going to do it that way and not spend the time to really try to train your ear as much as I think it is very, very important, at the very least, try to learn some basic music theory to help guide you. But it is really helpful to learn songs, not just the songs that you have to play, but just to learn songs for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Learn melodies. I can remember a friend of ours to turn me on to the Beatles, and I was really resistant to it, and I was probably 20. I just thought of it as old, and I wasn't really that interested, and I thought, this is not something I want to invest in. And boy, was I wrong. he insisted that I get out the songbook and play acoustic, and we ended up playing these songs and harmonizing vocals, and I was like, I get it. This is incredible. I didn't understand it until I learned to play them.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurately I was playing them at the time, but it was close enough for me to understand these guys were on a different level. Beatles are the Beatles for a reason. Not they are the greatest rock band ever. Not because they were the best musicians or they sounded the best, but they were the most inventive. They created something that did not exist before. There was a sophistication in there because those guys had great instincts and great ears. They pushed themselves. They didn't have anybody to learn from. They learned everything out of inspiration from Buddy Holly and, Little Richard and all those guys. But I would say the Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly were probably the two most important artists for the Beatles musically, most likely. There's a lot of sophistication in the Everly Brothers harmonies that didn't exist before anybody else. Well, and then you had was it the Four Weavers? What is the gospel group?
Oh yeah, what is that name?
Paul Simon was maybe not the Four Weavers, but it was something like that I should know and I don't. But Paul Simon was really influenced by them as well as a few other artists. So there's all these little artists and nuggets that you can draw from inspiration from and try to expand on and learn from. It doesn't have to be that you have to recreate gospel music, but you can take these things that really inspire you and try to build on it.
Yeah, you should be able to learn from any music, any genre, any
inspiration wherever you get it.
It's going to make the end product so much better,
Listening to a lot of different music. I listen to a lot. I know you guys listen to a lot. We call that big ears. And the musicians speak big ears. If you only listen to a certain, bit of music or era of music, challenge yourself, listen to new things. And it gets harder as you get older. I'm glad that I did it when I was younger. I listened to so many things and I still listen to things that I'm sure you guys probably aren't that interested in, and vice versa. But we really did our work. We were younger, out of inspiration as much as anything. So there really is value in the old tried and true method, but I would never say that's the only way to do it. Definitely, it's amazing to be able to learn these things more quickly. It's fascinating to think about what the musicians are going to be like that are just beginning now in 10 or 15 years. They're going to be incredible because they are inventing their own language. They're taking these things like they're learning on YouTube or wherever, probably YouTube as much as anything, that they're learning so quickly and just like taking for granted. Okay, well, it's there. I can learn it. Now I know it. And still the guys that are 30 or 40 years older than them still don't know it. Is that to them, it's a challenge, but these new kids are just like, well, okay, it's right there. Okay, I'll just learn it. They can build on that, and who knows what they're going to come up with. It's amazing to think about. It's exciting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great new things coming out and will continue to come out. But there's a lot of stuff to learn from the past and study what those guys did and take inspiration from. So it's all out there.
It's just ripe for the picking.
Yeah. All right. Well, I enjoyed this. I think that hopefully we had a few things to sprinkle in there with wisdom and our experiences. But there's a lot of stuff out there that's just great. And however you want to learn the music, push yourself.
Yeah, as long as you're learning to play, learn to play.
Yeah, that would be my bottom line: is push yourself. Don't just take the easy way. The path.
Don't stop listening. Don't stop learning.
Don't stop believing.
Hey, man, let's make a t-shirt out of that. All right. Well, thanks everybody for checking in. We will see you guys next week. Take care.
All right.
All right.
We will. I didn't have to use my hanky.
That's great.
That's all right.
No hanky panky. Is Jamey crying? Jamey's crying.